Okay. All right. Settle down. I think you can start now. So I'll be talking about Bayesian Machine Scientist. It's a new machine learning algorithm published in 2020, and I will also give a tutorial on it. So you don't have to understand everything. You'll have a code to use for your research by the end of this lecture, and I will explain to you how to use this code like ChatGPT. You don't need to understand how it works behind the scenes, but you can use it for your advantage, right? So I'll be talking about Bayesian Machine Scientist for 30 minutes and 15 minutes of tutorial. And after that, Leigh will take over. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in research, you get data from your experiments. And usually we know what kind of functions to fit to it. Okay. So if you get a data which looks like a line, you can fit a line. Okay. If you get a data and it looks like a sine curve, or you know from your prior experience or from your uh, physics knowledge that this phenomena should follow a sine curve, then you can fit a sine curve. Everybody knows how to do that. Uh, Physicists usually use Python or MATLAB code. I think chemists and biologists use Origin. That's one software used for fitting curves.
Some physicists use origin as well.
Okay. Yeah, but what if you get a data like this? Very complicated. Just look at the black dots here. So this is real data obtained in 1933. This is about viscosity of water going through a pipe. No need to understand physics, but let's look at data here, especially the black curve. The thing is, you can't guess which function to fit here, right? And it requires two independent variables, Re, which is Reynolds number, and epsilon by D, which is, let's say, another variable, and lambda is our output. So what can you do when you can't guess which function to fit to your data? Okay. This is the topic I'm going to discuss today, and this is uh, what we use machine learning or this Bayesian machine scientist for. Let's say, let's take another example. You have a phenomena, a very complicated phenomena. You don't have control over it, but you have enough data. This happens usually in astronomy. You can observe things, but you cannot change anything. You can't go to the star and control each variable and isolate everything and study every variable separately. So what happens is you get a output or your dependent variable. You can observe it or calculate it. But the thing is, it depends on multiple independent variables. Okay. Let's say you have a complicated system, you got good data, but the thing is so complicated, it depends on, let's say, 10 things. Okay. Your dependent variable depends on 10 things, and you cannot control each and every variable. And the function you want to fit is also looks like very complicated. Like this, just say in 2 dimensions. Uh, just looking at the data points or even the fitted graph, you can't say which function this should be, right? So in these kinds of cases where you have multiple independent variables and you cannot guess which function to fit, we use Bayesian machine scientist. Okay. I'll also be taking a tutorial, and I'll just run the tutorial right now because it takes some time. So you can see here, it's the same graph as you see in this presentation. So we have data and we'll try to find a function which fits this data. So I'll just run everything. And this should take 15 minutes. So we'll keep it in background. And this is another usual tutorial in case the first one fails. Okay. So can you think of any such problems in your research field where you have multiple independent variables on which you have don't which on which you don't have control, and the phenomena is so complex that you cannot guess the function to go from independent variables to dependent variable. And this is where you can use Bayesian Machine Scientist. There have been, yes.
Also, if I have only one independent variable and I don't know the function, I can use it.
Yes, of course. That will be the simplest case, piece of cake. Okay. Okay, so these are previous best-in-class algorithms. One of them is genetic algorithm, which are used to find functions to fit your data. In this method, they represent every equation as a tree. And this part here, the top is called root, and these are nodes, and the last nodes are called leaves. I don't know what kind of tree it's, but it's inverted. So in genetic algorithms, they do things similar to how genetics works. So at every generation, at every step, what they do is they allow, okay, first they fit a given function to the data, as you can see here. So they have one function here and they try to fit it to the data. Okay, find the parameters. And in the next step, they allow mutation. So the plus can become minus and the function will change. So orange function here is this, and they'll see how it fits. The another change which is allowed is crossbreeding. So take another function and change some part of it with this one and try to see if it fits. Okay. And what they do is, if they found a function which fits good enough, then they allow that function to replicate and they allow that function to have more mutations. And the other functions which does not fit well, they just truncate it, they stop it. But the limitations of this kinds of method is we don't have good balance between goodness of fit, like how good it fits our data, and the model complexity. Because you can grow the tree and get as much complicated functions as you want. And another problem is not all the models are tested, because only the good ones are kept and they are allowed to mutate. The ones which are not good enough, but maybe after mutation, they might have been good enough, those are truncated early in the stage. So all the spaces of the equations are not explored. Okay, here comes Bayesian Machine Scientist. It's published in 2020, Guimera. What it does is takes data and gives you functional form to which your data fits well. And it also tries to mitigate the two limitations of the previous best-in-class methods to find best equations. Let's go to some basic mathematics. You don't need to understand everything, but just bear with me for 5 minutes. You don't need to understand this to use it in your research. But let's have some quick background. So you guys know Bayes' theorem. Does everybody know what are the terms in here? So what is this one? You see?
I have no idea.
Come on. So this is posterior, okay? Posterior probability distribution function. This one here is called prior. That is prior information you have about your functions.
It's not just an information, it's belief you have.
Yes, belief. Okay. You believe
It's a belief, it's a Bayesian belief.
Okay. This thing here in the denominator is called evidence. That's just based on data. And this thing here is called likelihood function. Okay. And we read it as probability of getting the model or the equation given your data. Okay. If you replace m, that is model or function, with and with its parameters as well, theta. So f is function and theta are parameters of each function. Then you can expand it like this. It's the same thing. It's just that you get additional term, which is prior posterior distribution function in function space. Okay. So, okay. And the next thing you do is you try to solve this. Basically, at every stage, when you get equation in this Bayesian machine scientist approach, it fits to the data automatically and finds the best parameters. So we don't need parameters in this equation. So if you remove the parameters by integrating it, you'll get posterior probability density function in function space. So you have all the functions, so sine, cosine, and all combinations of it. Let's say sine divided by x, everything, all kinds of terms. And you get probability of getting each function or each term uh, based on your data. Okay, posterior probability based on your data. All right, so they integrated it. You got this evidence term here. Then we have probability, sorry, prior PDF in function space here. And we split the prior probability of parameters given the function. Next, what they do is they describe a term called description length, which is defined here, L, which is function of functions or the equations we are gonna try to fit, and the data, and it's written as minus log p function and data. Okay, and uh, it basically encapsulates your prior knowledge of the functions and how good your data fits to your function. Okay, and it can be shortened to this. So the description length becomes Bayesian information criteria and log p of f, which is prior PDF in function space. So basically, this equation, what it does is balances between your prior and goodness of fit, which is what we intended to do while improving previous best models. And what's the prior for our Bayesian machine scientist? Let's look at how scientists usually find functions, best functions for fitting their data. As a scientist or as a physicist, you usually search for simplest equations, right? Simplest equations are preferred in research. Let's say force is equal to G ammonium 2 upon R square. It's a simple equation. It doesn't have 100 terms, right? So any equation which has less number of terms and less number of operations is preferred, right? In science, at least. Data scientists don't care about it. They just want best accuracy. But how do you tell that to machine? So what they did was they scraped the entire Wikipedia. They searched for list of equations named after scientists or mathematicians, and they found 4,080 equations. Okay, and they collected all of them, and they tried to find what operations are used in it and how many terms are used in it. Okay, so the most used operation is multiplication. As you can see, even in this one, there is multiplication here. So the most used operation is multiplication. Then there is addition, power, and everything. Okay, so they decided prior, or they calculated prior based on how often these operations are used, and yeah, basically, yeah, that's it. So what it does is it gives more priority to simple equations and simple operations like addition, multiplication, and like single terms and a maximum two terms. And it penalizes complex functions like tan h. Here you see it has very low probability. Cos h also has very low probability. Okay, so this is how they set their priors. Now, how does the algorithm work?
So a number of the wait, like of plus or multiplications, or is it like the relative and within the like
No, take all the equations, count how many multiplications are there, and count how many.
Plus is very common
Mhm.
in these equations.
Yes.
General equation. So the prior is the relative number of answer plus.
Yeah, how many? Yeah, it's based on that. How often it is used. So if it is used more often, it will be preferred. Yes, it will have a higher prior probability. Okay, so this is the algorithm. Similar to previous ones, we are allowed to change the root. That is this part. We can add things here or remove things from here. Then you can do replacements. So instead of variable, you replace it with a constant. You can do node replacements. So, and you can add additional trees down, additional branches down. But in this approach, what they have done differently is instead of using genetic algorithm, they have used MCMC, Markov chain Monte Carlo method. So what it does is it checks the prior probability, prior information, and uh, it decides whether to go to the next step or stay there or explore something else with prior probability, as in multiplication will be favored or simple terms will be favored and the complex functions will be less favored.
Space of the MCMC is the space of the possible functions.
All the functions, yes, all possible functions. They don't just use all the 4080 functions, they also use all the combinations of them. Okay, you can basically create any function from that. Okay. But for priors, they use those 4080 functions from Wikipedia, which are famous equations. So as I said, if a equation is simple enough and fits the data, MCMC will go there more often, right? And which will increase its probability. And if a function is very complex and it doesn't fit the data, then it will be visited less often. So as you can see here, here's the data in graph C, and here is a tree of all the functions that are possible. So this function fits well. That's why it has larger size. That means it was visited more often. And similarly, this is the second largest one. So this is second highest probability answer, second highest probability function which fits the data. And there are some lesser favorable answers and there are even lesser favorable functions. Okay.
The graph is generated by the program itself, or
No, this is just representation.
how?
The program gives you most likely function given your data, and which fits your data well, and also which is simple enough. Okay. If you look through the code, you can also get the second best one, third best one, fourth best one. Okay.
Each function will have a set of just two parameters.
Yeah, it does it on its own. You can fit it, anyone can fit it, right? So at every step, it creates a function. It finds the best parameters to fit the data. And that's your best parameter function. And what it does is this MCMC steps. So it changes function, tries fitting, and it changes according to this prior knowledge and how simple the function is and how best it fits. Okay. And that's how it can explore the entire function space and also and do it faster. So,
For example, if in this situation where there are two functions, and both of them have good fit to the data, but one of them is simpler because it has less terms. So we will search this area more.
yeah, it will go to that area more often, and thus it will have higher posterior probability. Okay.
So that means what we are basically looking for is robustness. A model is said to be robust if you're able to produce the same result using less parameters with a complex. So if we have a model that takes less number of people and it's able to produce the same result with a more complex one, so we say that model is robust.
Yes.
Basically, I think what we are looking at now is the robustness of that model.
Yes. Of course. So here's a demonstration of how it works. This is a really good video they created. So at the top left, you can see the data points. They are colored based on Y value. So higher Y value has lighter color. Doesn't matter to us. And the thing is, the function depends on, or the Y value depends on two independent variables, x1 and x2. The blue mesh is the function it is currently trying to fit. So this is a flat one. So it will say y is equal to c1 by x2. Okay. And what it does is it runs MCMC simulation or iterations. And in this graph, you see description length, which is the function we are trying to minimize. Usually, when you are fitting a function, we try to minimize chi-square, right? Here, we are trying to minimize description length. And this blue curve is what should be looking at. So how, as the MCMC iterations go on and as it finds better functions to fit the data, the description length goes down. And finally, it will find the best function. And here is mean absolute error, which we usually use to find if your function is fitting the data well. So as you can see, as the iterations go on, the functions change and it checks if it is fitting the data well. So it tries multiple things with some algorithm, and at the end you get best fitting function. And at the bottom, you see some alternate. So it runs same in parallel, and just to be sure that it is not getting stuck in one area of the functions.
And what are those functions that are downstairs?
Those are explored by parallel MCMC iterations. And these are not the best ones. The blue one is the best one. Okay. So to make it faster and to make it robust, they run it in parallel. Okay.
Does it try the same number of parameters? Like,
What?
Like not only that the function should be the simplest in terms of x1 and x2, it should also have the minimum number of three parameters, so C1, C2, or not?
Yes. It should have least number of terms and it should fit the data well enough. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
At the beginning of the simulation, do you know the program that is the best? As you said, there are multiple engines that run the program in parallel. But from the beginning, do you know what is the best one?
Yes. The blue one is the most stable one.
Yeah, but is it determined by something at the beginning or maybe some calculation?
Yes. The thing is, the blue one is the most stable one. It does not jump around that much. That's why it is called low temperature model, or low temperature iteration. The other ones, the colored ones, other colors, red and green and all, those are allowed to jump, like go from just a simple function to a very complex function. So it allows them to explore all kinds of functions, but the most stable one is blue one. And if the other functions, if the other parallel iterations find the best one, it shifts it to blue one. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is how the method works. Now they try to compare this Bayesian machine scientist with other state-of-the-art methods to fit the data. Here is MS machine scientist. This is Eureka in green. This is evolutionary function synthesis in orange. And GP is Gaussian process, which Lev likes. They tried all types of kernels for GP, and they use the best kernel here. Okay, so you see here the previous data which you saw in the second slide related to friction and fluid motion. What they did was the gray dots here are the data on which they train all the models, and the black dots are the data on which they try to predict things. And as it turns out, the machine learning model, machine scientist, did the best in terms of mean absolute error, which means it fit the data well. This is called interpolation, and in section D, they did the same thing, but tried to extrapolate to larger values of Reynolds number. So they're trying to extrapolate here. And here also, Bayesian machine scientist does better in minimizing the error between the actual data and the predicted value. Yeah, the limitations of this model. The thing is, if you have very less amount of data, or if your data is very noisy, nobody can save you. Okay. And what this Bayesian machine scientist will do is, it will give you the simplest functions. If your data is very noisy, like just a random noise, it will say it's a constant function. And as it should be. You cannot guess a very complicated function from very noisy or very bad data. So it gives you simplest functions that can fit the data, which are not the true functions because you have a lot of noise. Also, one other thing is it will give you expressions. So if you have good data and if you have enough data, it will give you true expressions or maybe the best expressions to fit your data. You have to find the explanation, the physical interpretation of your data, or the physical interpretation of the function you got. You can do that using dimensionality of the equation. So each term in the equation should have same dimensionality units, basically. You can test it by using the limiting behavior. So as in, like, as things go to infinity, what should be the answer of your function? You might know from the science behind it. And you also can check violations of rules, let's say singularity or something. Okay. And here are sources from which I learned about these things. I can share the slide and the tutorial. Okay, any questions? I will also give a tutorial, like 15 minutes. I'll show how to use it. Okay.
How does it report for maybe over 50 does it report for over 15?
It can come again louder.
Over 50, how does it report, or maybe if the kind of metrics, if it was perfectly false performance?
What?
The perfectly, perfect performance, which is not. How does it report the overfitting?
Report for overfitting.
Maybe whether it's 0.9999 performance. Yes.
Okay. So the thing is, it has, we have given it a prior. Okay. So it favors simpler equations. If it is overfitting your data, that means your function is very complex. Okay. That's why it is overfitting your data. So what it does is, based on the prior, which says the simpler equations are favored. So it will automatically give best function, which is simpler than what you are getting overfitting for.
It also finds minimum prior length or
I say
Description length.
yes, so it's also it also minimizes this.
Yeah, the description length is
It's
little bit
like-
of
it's like a-
misnomer.
It's like a chi-square from your explanation, right?
No, description length is a kind of misnomer. They use it in information theory. Description length is a combination of best fitting, so least error, least what do you say, mean absolute error between your fitted curve and the data, and your prior. So it balances between that. Description length is balance between your prior, which says simpler functions are favored, and the best fitting.
Sorry, the slide on the mathematical part, is it supposed to calculate the principle of calculation of parameters that the program uses? I didn't get the slide, small slide on the mathematics.
Yeah, that's basically what it says is we are trying to minimize this function, okay, which is description length, and then we feed this description length here to find the posterior probability, okay. And what description length is? This is Bayesian information criteria, which basically calculates best fit to your data, okay. And this is P of F, which is prior probability density function on your function space, all kinds of functions. So it's a balance between the two. It tries to keep the function simple while keeping the best fit. Any more questions?
So first, we'll join the raw data.
What?
And then I will run the whole of this.
Yes, I'll teach you how to do that. Okay, here you have the same data as I showed you in the, I think, third slide.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just ran it when I was showing you the graph, and it will try to okay. Okay, this is all you need to know in order to use this method. I don't know how to do that. This will work, right? Okay. So all you need to do is tabulate your data. Okay. Make a CSV file. Keep your inputs x1, x2, x3 in columns, and your output y in one of the columns, and then define x labels, the independent variable labels like this. Then you can get the raw data from the CSV file using this line, and then you define x and y values using this line.
How do we get X1 and X2?
No. You just, if you save your data to CSV file, which is the first row, second row, names or labels of the rows. Okay.
Is this I mean, because I'm seeing that the raw data, that is the one from CSV, which is the Excel.
It's not Excel, it's CSV.
CSV. You can also use Excel.
Excel also you don't
That
see it.
Excel knows how to display CSV.
Yeah.
CSV is independent.
Yeah, they interact.
Excel controls the display and the
Sure.
processing
Yeah,
of CSV by
Okay, I have saved my data like this. So this is first independent variable labeled x1, and this is the data.
Yeah.
This is second independent variable, and this is my output variable.
Right now, you don't know any relationship between them. Oh,
No.
correct.
That's what we are trying to find.
Let's proceed.
Okay.
If you don't have the X1, only want the X, wait.
Huh. That will also work. Yes. Okay. So when you do your research, save your data like this. Then what you do is, okay, get this tutorial from me.
Sorry. So that means the X also, they are part of the raw data. Because your column is showing that you are loading the file containing the 3 columns.
Yeah, you first all the data, you
So I
first
want-
load all the data,
Yeah,
then assign X and Y values.
yeah. Right, because what I'm confused is that the file you loaded, that's the raw data, that is the file that contains X1, X2, X3. So I was wondering why X1 and X2 came before the loading of the data.
Because you know names of your independent variables.
Okay.
Or you can read it from the CSV file.
Yeah.
That's also okay. Okay. Valid question actually. Okay. So I just loaded the data and try to show first few data points. Then I plotted my data just to see if
Just to
everything is
display.
correct. Yeah. Then it initializes Bayesian Machine Scientist. So it loads prior from whatever they have done. And they create parallel threads to explore the entire function space.
Sorry.
They create,
Where do we load the crash?
yeah, they already have a prior in one of the files. So they will just load it.
So if I have my raw data now, how do I get it? I want to get it from beginning to the end. So I have the way you show us this column now. How do I get my pro for this?
Uh,
They have already done this, right?
they have already calculated prior, yes.
So if I bring my data to you now, can get it,
Yeah,
right?
just give me that data and I will give you the best function. Or you can do it on your own. You just need to know this part, only this section.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything else, I am just explaining it to you. You don't need to understand all of
Like
it.
a set of priors that are loaded in a data set, in a set of priors.
What are priors? Basically, it says favor simpler equations, and that's encoded in mathematics. That's it.
In essence, this process runs
What?
in essence, like this process it runs at the back of this.
Yeah, this is like prior research. You don't need to do it again. Okay. And then it generates different functions. And then here it runs 5,000 MCMC iterations, and it tries to find the best model. Best model, which basically has the minimum description length, which means it fits the data well and it also is simple enough. And here you get a function which fits your data well. So this is the function. And as you can see, these are the actual values on x-axis and these are the model prediction on y-axis, and they lie on a straight line. That means like for -8 actual value, you got model prediction around -8. So it's a good function. And here's another tutorial which they provided. So they basically got some data from the internet and they tried to, first they plotted, they found there's no simple to find or simple to guess function which will fit the data. And when they run the simulation, they found this function to match best with their data. Okay. That's it. This is how you use.
Can you feed the data
Yes.
after finding?
Yeah. So after finding this functional form, yeah, you can use any simple code
Can
to
you show me how it's not entered the data?
this one. Yeah. So you see the actual values of the data on the x-axis, and this is the model prediction. So if let's say actual value is -3 here, see the model prediction is also close to -3. This is
Fitting function, nothing. It's just
Yeah.
you give data, it will fit automatically.
yes, yeah, it will find you the functional form, and then you can use simpler your simple origin or Python programming to find the coefficients. It doesn't give you coefficients readily, but you can easily program them. So you see C1 is a coefficient. PT may is a is one of the variables, and minus E effective is also a variable. It doesn't give you coefficients. You can basically find it using a simple code or anything, origin or something.
If I know the function to fit the data, I know the function to fit the data, but it's not fitting correctly in the data. Can I give input to this function, my input function, my fitting function to fit the data? Is it possible?
Yeah, you can change a few lines and do that. But the thing is, this is useful when you don't have any good guess on, any good guess on which functions to fit.
Yeah, some cases, yes, we need to fit with that specific equation, but it's not fitting. And so, can it be useful for that?
No, then that's not doing science, man.
But if
Yeah,
you find
if-
a parameter, I understand that, but yes, not a fit self.
By the way, it works in the Bayesian way, means that it proceed by testing hypothesis currently, right? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It's stable. If you run it 2 times, you get the same function. Like you
If you
and then try again with the same number of
yes,
iterations.
if you run it for longer MCMC iterations, it should be stable. In principle, I know Yossi doesn't agree. So what you can do is you can try to run it multiple times and see what are the functions you are getting. You may get 2-3 functions,
Yes.
and you basically try to figure out which ones is the most scientific for your problem.
You also give the number of functions or only the best function?
Currently, it gives the best function, but it has a collection of all the lesser accurate functions. Yes. So you can get the best 5 functions if you want.
Your question? Is
Hmm.
it only as a Python package or also in MATLAB?
It is in Python package, yes. Any more questions? So it's 3 o'clock. You guys can take a 15-minute break. Then Lev will continue.
Thanks, Mangesh.
I suppose that I might have one question.
Okay.
My research is in pretty much straight mathematical physics. You know, pretty much pure theory rather. Is there any way that would be this would be useful to me?
Your research is in?
Mathematical general relativity.
Okay.
So like it's pure theory, basically going into the nuts and bolts of the math.
Okay.
But I just don't see how
If you want,
relevant-
if you have data,
right.
if you could generate data somehow, and if you want to find mathematical expression which fits your data,
Right.
or which governs your data.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fulkar, can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So this thing also works for differential equations as well. It not only fits the like independent variable and dependent variable, like in the usual sense, it can also find the differential equations underlying the data. So basically, if you feed it the trajectory of planets in our solar system, it will give you F is equal to G ammonium 2 upon R square.
Cool.
Okay, nice.
Yes.
Temperature radius values, and you know that it has to fit the luminosity equation. So you have a bunch of data. Give them the correct equation.
There is some underlying. This is called HR diagram problem, right? Okay.
Just ask me. You know a particular equation, you know particular variables, and you know particular values of those things.
Yeah, if you have data, it can
So
be.
your thing will give you back the equation correctly. You understand?
Yeah.
that's the
So then what about the constant of the equation?
You can use origin to fit the function and get the function. This is like tackling the elephant till you can tackle the.
But, oh, I was gonna say about, physicists and origin. I do theory now, but I used to do experiment. At one point, my second kind of hands-on job as a, as a grad student, we were calibrating experimental apparatus for something to be done at Jefferson National Laboratory. They were using we were using origin there.
Okay.
So it certainly is used by physicists. Baruch Hashem, yourself?
Yes.
The best lecture ever.
It was really interesting.
Good, that's good.
Very good.
Professional. We should have more.
And also the-
Yossi, now I am offended.
No. I did not online. So that's the problem.
צריך למנן את ה...
All right. We'll just keep it like this, right?
Yeah, it's not recording, is it?
It is recording. That's the problem.
So, you want to stop, so go.
Level continue.
You
and-
can pause,
I
pause
know, but we
recording,
want
not
the
re-
everything. Yeah, we'll leave it like this. Thank you, Volker.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
See you.
Okay,
see you.
see you.
Are you going off in search of
I'll keep it like this.
Yeah, I'll do it.
So how do you find it?